Welcome to Technado with Don Pizzette, featuring sysadmin expert Don Pizzette, security specialist Daniel Lowry, and Peter.
Hello and welcome to Technado with Don Pizzette. I'm your host, Peter Van Rysdam, joined by Don Pizzette, of course. Don, how's it going up there?
Hey, I am doing great on probably the first and only day of winter in Florida, so we're,
But you said
out.
it this morning, we can't really complain because other people complain more.
Yeah. We
I
don't
think
get
it's
snow.
50 out right now. It's 50 and sunny, so,
Yeah.
can't really complain. I tried sledding in the driveway. It was not good. And Daniel, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm good. I actually enjoy the cool weather. So I noticed all these other Floridians around here typically are like, oh, it's 70 degrees. It's freezing. And I'm like, let's chill out. I know you can't wear flip-flops today.
Well,
but
they're still walking around with Parkers and flip-flops.
yeah,
That's
they
the
do
funny
wear the
part.
flip-flops
I mean,
regardless, don't they?
They don't seem to understand.
I don't care.
They don't understand how frostbite works.
Yeah.
Yeah, they will.
Well, your
They will
toes are
eventually.
black for a reason.
And we are joined by Tim Titus, who's the CTO of PathSolutions. Tim, how are you?
Doing well in sunny California, where it is a snappy, cold 68.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
See, now we can complain because we're
In the
worse
same
off.
boat, yeah.
Well, now it's 50 here when I just drove
yes,
in. So.
Yeah.
Wow, California.
Tim
place
can't
to be.
complain. He lost his right.
But Tim also can't leave his house.
That's
because
true.
he's in California. So it's a double-edged sword. All right, well, let's get to know Tim a little bit. That was like as close to political as we've gotten on
I
this show.
know.
I feel like I wasn't passing judgment.
Listen, back away from the line there, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, we save passing judgment for later in the podcast.
All right, well, let's get to know Tim a little bit in our first segment, rapid-fire questions.
Who do you work for?
What's new?
Who are you?
What's happening?
What's wrong with you?
All right, Tim, in this segment, we are going to pepper you with questions that you will have 1 minute to answer. If you take longer than a minute, you will get buzzed like this. Ooh, I got buzzed. And then we'll move on to the next question. So you got to think fast and on your feet. We're going to rotate around. Each person's going to ask a couple of questions. We will start today with Peter.
All right, so Tim, I mentioned you're the CTO and founder of PathSolutions. Can you give us a little bit of an overview of the company and what you guys do?
So PathSolutions does both network monitoring and also root cause troubleshooting. One of the things I found that a lot of monitoring and troubleshooting solutions, they only go skin deep, and so they really won't tell you what is broken that is causing a problem. You have to go dig and find out what's going on yourself. And that means you're logging into devices, collecting interface information, error counters, configuration, hunting for that problem, and you have to be able to put the pieces together. This leads to a lot of frustration. And so that's really what we focused on, is automate the heck out of this so that we collect all that information and say, here's what your equipment knows that you should know.
All right, now there are a lot of monitoring solutions out there. I think I've used a different one at every single company I've worked for, and I've seen a ton at trade shows and other places. So it's a busy market. There's a lot of competitors that are out there. So what is how is your application able to actually figure out what the problem is? Is it collecting different data than the competition, or do you have some kind of knowledge base where it just knows these elements go together to form a problem? How does that process work?
Well, actually, all of what you just described. If you think about it, a lot of monitoring systems only collect information on single interfaces, or maybe a couple of interfaces on a switch or a router. And to configure it to monitor every interface on a switch or a router, they just can't scale that well. So we decided to collect all of the information off of all of the switches, all of the routers, all the interfaces. Also go deep. So not just covering broad, but go deep and collect all of the error counters. 19 different error counters, all the configuration, all the performance off all those, bring it back, put it through a heuristics engine that analyzes it and can come up and say, did you realize you have a cabling fault on your router over here? Do you realize you have a VLAN tagging issue on this other interface? Do you realize that you have jumbo frames misconfigured on your server switch? So being able to start going through and saying, oh, these are the plain English answers, I can go through and solve the problems. That's really what it's about with network monitoring and troubleshooting. If you knew what your equipment knew, you could proactively solve the problem and run a network that's perfectly healthy, instead of a network where it's still full of mystery because you just don't know enough breadth or depth about what's going on.
That's really cool stuff. I like that idea. I've definitely worked with those. pesky little devices myself in the past. Now, you have had a history of both sides, where large enterprise environments or just even small businesses. That said, have you seen a similarity between problems between those two, or is there something that's specific to each of those environments?
There are things that tend to be more specific to different types of environments. For example, with small organizations, what you have is folks that are tasked with being jack of all trades, and they have to be able to understand this is a DNS problem, or this is a link flap problem, or this is a spanning tree issue. And so giving them some help so that they can be a better jack of all trades is one part of the picture there. Then you have large environments where you have separate compartmentalized people working on different functions. Like there's one group that focuses on routing. Okay, if we give them more information about the network, that means that they can interface better with the team that's working on desktop and collaborate and solve problems together, because there's more information brought to bear to help both of those people work.
So I saw when the pandemic first started, you guys kind of released some software for free to help people, help network admins work remotely. I'm curious, though, is a product like yours even more valuable now in a situation where people aren't necessarily right next to the server? They might be at home or in a different situation, because they're able to, well, before you said they had to actually go and find and root out what the problem was with the hardware. So is it easier for them now with this tool?
So as a result of, so we offered a small tool that was useful in doing some end user troubleshooting. And when we found the uptake on that, we figured this is a big problem for folks. And the core of our company is help network engineers, help them solve problems. And so we decided, let's actually go big on this and end up adding a lot of features to this work at home capability. And so we're just releasing, newly announced today on this show, that we have a new product called Remote View. And what Remote View will do is you hand this to a non-technical user, they run it, they effectively say, go collect all the information. It sends the information back to our server, where you can sit down as the engineer and say, oh, I can see your routing table on your computer, I can see your ARP cache, I can see wireless signal strength, wireless SSIDs in the neighborhood, your firewall, your ISP information. I have all of the troubleshooting, so I can tell the user at home, here's what you need to do to fix your problem.
That was perfect, right down to 0 seconds. Did you see that? He did not
You haven't buzzed anybody yet, and I'm thinking, I'd like to be the first person. There's always a benefit to being the first. I should have gone off a little bit longer.
Should have gone over, yeah. Just one more or something in there would have done it.
I just want to hear the buzzer again.
Okay, hold on. It's over here. Page 3.
You didn't even have it ready. No, because he literally could not have buzzed you.
He nailed it. I'm sorry, I failed.
There you go.
Well, I do have another new sound this week, because for our next segment, we've had a segment in the past called What Don Hates, and our guests have said, you know what, I hate things too, and I want to talk about them, and I'm not going to make a new intro for each guest for what they hate. So we have the new segment this week, which is What Grinds My Gears.
You know what really grinds my gears? This Lindsay Lohan. You know what really grinds my gears? You, America.
We now go to Peter for You Know What Really Grinds My Gears.
Thanks, Tom. It just worked out that his name was Peter as well.
There you go.
But we'll go with it. So we've kind of alluded to it, but basically what grinds your gears, Tim, is inaccurate reporting. And so I want to go back to, I'm sure, you're the co-founder of PathSolutions, so there was a time when you were probably like in a nest of cables or under a server or something where you said, you know what, there's got to be an easier way. So what was the frustration that led to this?
Well, in one sense, you talk about that, and it's like, yep, we all have. It's like all of us who have worked in networking operations, system operations, we've all been fighting with that problem where user comes up to you and says, hey, I'm having this problem. And you look at your monitoring system, and your monitoring system says everything is healthy. And you're like, why? Why is this happening? There's no indications of any problems, and yet the user's still having the problem, and you have to go manually troubleshoot. And so it just means that there's a giant information disconnect. If your monitoring system is only looking at 1 or 2 error counters, and those error counters are 0, and yet there's 10 other error counters that could be tripping, like collisions, if you had like a half duplex connection. If it's not aware of that, it's not able to help you out. And so making sure that you're not operating with an information disconnect on, I don't know what my network is doing, that leaves you in a spot where you're going to be trapped. And the trap is users will know about problems and you won't.
I saw also you mentioned something. You said if you're not troubleshooting when the problem's occurring, you won't find it. So are there other systems where, or I guess where if you looked at a monitoring system and it says, well, there was something before, but it's fine now, so I guess you're okay. Like, does your system allow you to kind of go back and see, well, no, I had a problem here, and this is what it was?
Yeah, and so part of my frustration is I thought about how do you troubleshoot a lot of problems. You have to find out where is the starting computer, what's its IP address, where is it plugged into the network, what switch, what port, how does that switch convey the data to the other device? And it might be a building away, it might be a city away. What are the linked switches and routers used to connect those two? And then what's going on all of those links? Are we dropping packets on any of them? Is there a QoS misconfiguration? Is there latency being added, jitter being added? And so all of those troubleshooting activities, I thought, this could all be optimized if there was a tool designed to make network engineers' lives easier. So what we have is the ability to do a path map. This is actually why we named the company PathSolutions. We can determine what is the path from your PC to the other computer or server or whatever, every link, every switch, every router, and then what happened along that path at any point in time with all of the error counters, all the configuration, QoS and performance, so that you can look and say, okay, this link is perfectly clean because it didn't drop any errors around the time. This other link is clean, this device is clean. All of a sudden, you're gonna focus in on the link or the device that says, hey, we're dropping packets on this interface due to alignment errors, and realize that your other monitoring software wasn't even looking at that interface or wasn't looking at alignment errors. We're going to be able to say it's alignment errors, it's this interface. And by the way, the heuristics engine has analyzed this and said, based upon how the interface is configured and how it's operating, you have a cabling fault here. So we're able to get you that plain English diagnostic of here's the root cause of what caused that problem.
No, I love what you're describing, but I can't help but think, like, I've dealt with log files like this before, and I can give you an example. Like when I was out in Seattle, we had a server that was getting, it was like dropping packets. It was doing some really weird stuff on the network. The server didn't really have any errors. The switch didn't really have any errors. And so as we dug into it, we ultimately tracked it back to a Microsoft bug, which was kind of fun. But as we were looking at it, one challenge was correlating the information between the event log on the Windows server and the syslogs that were on the switch and the event information. And that correlation process, we did by hand, just as human beings. We looked at the time, made sure the clocks were synced, which of course they weren't. So then we had to kind of realign the times, and it was just a nightmare of work. And it sounds like what PathSolutions is doing is basically doing all that grunt work for us. So I'm curious, does that mean that you have to support like just certain hardware or certain software and versions to make sure that you can parse those logs, or are you able to adapt and handle logs from like switch vendors you've never heard of?
So we work on all of the different switch and router manufacturers. Our company's been around long enough that we have experience working with, there's some old 3Com hubs we can still collect information from. So we're going to collect that information from all your network devices, correlate that, and say, here's what happened along that path between these 2 points at a specified point in time that you had the issue, so that you can quickly say, it's this interface. It was dropping 6% of the packets, and it's a VLAN misconfiguration as to why those packets are being dropped. Thus, we can fix the root cause of the problem. In some cases, though, you describe how servers, people wonder, is it an application problem or is it a network problem? We don't dig into the server logs, but what we can do is we can validate that the problem is not in the network, because we can say, according to all 19 error counters, configuration, performance, every link, every switch, every router used to connect to the server is perfectly healthy, and we didn't drop a single packet. Therefore, you can rule that out and quickly say, it's an application problem, let's look at the server.
So I remember having a conversation with the server guys. This didn't go. It was one of those things that was like funny in my head, but out loud turned out not to be funny. Where we looked at all the network gear and everything was fine, and so I told them, I said, well, this is obviously an SCP. And they said, well, what's an SCP? And I said, someone else's problem, right?
I was about to say, Tim's product kind of removes that. Oh, no, everything's fine. The machine says everything's fine. It's all in your head. Yeah, plausible deniability goes away with Path products.
Something on your end, I feel like. Yeah, well.
And that's what really grinds my gears.
There we go. All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. And so, Tim, if people want to find out more about PathSolutions, what's the URL? Where do we go and check this out?
www.pathsolutions.com. We have videos online you can check out. You can look at different aspects of our product. We have the ability to root cause troubleshoot network problems, telecom problems. We also have security operations covered, and also work from home users.
It's always nice when someone actually has the .com too, because I don't just assume because oh no, we're PathSolutionsOfTheFuture.io, and no, PathSolutions.com. That's nice and easy. And you said that new software for working with remote users, is it out now or just came out?
It just came out, so it is fresh and ready to be used.
Fantastic. So.
And remember, everybody out there in TV land, a good monitoring solution is installed before you have a problem, not after.
Yeah, Daniel's got a monitoring solution on my machine. He's always just
Yeah.
I'm just checking in on him.
That's the nice thing about the relationship with the person hacking you. It can be like, by the way, you need to really update this driver.
I love when he waves at me when his camera comes on.
Wait, it doesn't even come on. It's just, you disabled the light. Thanks for doing that. Well, Tim, thank you so much for taking the time with us today. We appreciate you venting about what grinds your gears and sharing with us. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And everybody stay tuned. We're going to have a little bit more news coming up. We're also going to talk about who got pwned this week right after this quick break, so stay tuned.
IT pros who want to learn on the go? The IT Pro TV Android app is for you. Now it's better than ever with the dashboard view built in. Easily resume viewing, see new courses as they're added, and track your hours viewed. Start up your next episode with the touch of a button to binge watch on the go. Track your progress at a glance, and download episodes as an annual member for offline viewing. Access all IT Pro TV courses with a simple button. Choose landscape mode for larger viewing. Choose your course by category, certification, or job role. Watch anywhere and pick up later on your favorite devices. So head to the App Store and download the IT Pro TV app.
All right, welcome back to Technado with Don Pizzette, and thank you so much to Tim Titus from PathSolutions for joining us and telling us about all the problems with our monitoring software. And
They do suck.
Not his.
Not his.
Not his. Or any of the other guests we've had on, because I feel like we've had some monitoring solutions before.
We have. And actually some really cool ones.
Yeah.
So
just get them all.
Yeah.
And that way you miss nothing.
Man, you monitor the crap out of your network. That's
I
the way
think
to fly.
it shows that it's a field that could stand for some innovation, right? Because everybody's got just tons and tons of log files coming through, so there's innovative ways to parse it and sort it out.
Yeah.
Tons of logs.
Nothing like searching for a needle in a stack of needles.
Yep.
But we do have a lot of news to get to this week, and as I said, we're also gonna find out who got pwned a little bit later. But
Waiting
our
on you,
first
Peter.
article, our first article is from bleepingcomputer.com. Microsoft rolls out Application Guard for Office to all customers. I feel like this is just something that's gonna make things run slower for me, or
Maybe. It depends. So Application Guard, Microsoft announced it last year, but it's been in originally it was in a kind of a closed alpha, then it moved into a beta, and so now it's finally releasing to the world at large. If you're a Microsoft 365 customer, you will have access to Application Guard, which, if you haven't heard of it, is a really neat feature. So what it does is it allows you to open up email attachments, or really any file, and open it in a completely sandboxed environment. It basically leverages a virtual machine behind the scenes to be able to open and display the document on your screen in an isolated environment, so that if it contains malware, a macro virus, any craziness, Trojan, whatever, it's all in this kind of walled garden. And when you close the application, that little walled off environment gets deleted and goes away. So this is kind of the solution for, one thing we tell people a lot is, hey, don't open attachments from people you don't know. All right. Well, that makes sense. As an IT professional, I can do that. Like, hey, I don't know this person. I'm not going to open the attachment. But imagine you worked in human resources and you put out a job ad. You're going to get resumes from people, and they're going to be PDFs and Word documents and stuff. And guess what? You got to open them. That's the only way you can see these documents.
Zip
So-
files and exe files. And
I was just used to spin up my own virtual machine. Now I don't have to do that anymore.
Why are all these resumes coming in a VBS format? I don't get it.
Oh man, I got to run this.
So that's what Application Guard solves. It gives you that ability to run it in a walled garden. So if you haven't heard of it before, it is now publicly available as a feature in Microsoft 365. It is not a feature of just Microsoft Office. It is Microsoft 365. You have to have a subscription to be able to use it, but it is integrated. It does have another name, which is Microsoft Defender Application Guard for Office. That's way too long of a name.
Yep.
But it's basically part of Microsoft's Defender's ever-expanding front line of defense.
So once you open it, and I see in the image in the Bleeping Computer article, it has a little red box that says the file is opened in, or actually, I guess they're just highlighting that it's opened in Application Guard. Does it scan the file then and then say, okay, this is cool, and open it regularly after that? Or?
It doesn't actually scan it, to my knowledge. It just opens it in this environment. So, like, if it hacks that fake environment, it just doesn't
no big
care.
deal.
Yeah.
Do you have to worry about anything like, since this is running inside of a virtual machine per se in the background, what about things like VM escapes and
Well, I
and
think
that?
we all know that's impossible, right?
Of course, yeah. I was just making stuff up.
Yeah, a VM escape is a real possibility, but in this scenario,
It's
in
unlikely.
theory, opening a PDF or opening a Word document shouldn't need internet access. So this is a closed-off VM. Now, it would have to... VM escapes are, first off, really hard.
Yeah, they're super sophisticated
and
attacks.
pretty valuable. So, you're not normally going to see them in the random spread that these types of attacks fall under. But, it certainly could happen. No solution is perfect.
I like all my 0-day VM escapes to go right out into the wild.
Just backtracking, and again, I know what a
Of
VM
course.
escape is, but for those at home that maybe don't and feel weird asking, what would you tell them?
So this is basically the idea of, if you're inside of a virtual machine environment, right? You've basically kind of pushed off some resources of your computer to say, hey, make a virtual computer here, and that's not going to touch my actual computer. It's going to be kind of walled off in this area in which you can work. Well, what happens if I can jump the wall and make my way into your actual computer? That's what we want to worry about with that. I would assume that ultimately there's probably some like crazy state-sponsored hackers that do have those O-days that are sitting in their pocket like, cool, man, I'm going to totally hose this because I can get around that. But like Don says, probably not going to be... That would be a very targeted attack against a specific entity states, that you would have to worry about there. And the good news is this is off by default, Don. I'm just scrolled down.
Yeah, so
and that's what it says.
It is off by default. First off, you do need an E5 license. So, like, I know we use E3s for most of our stuff. So you need an E5 license, and then on top of that, you do have to turn it on. It's off by default, and that's because it slows things down. Going back to Daniel's point, because it's got to basically create a virtual environment and launch the document inside of that. So for most users, they don't necessarily need that level of security, and they don't want that burden. But if you work in HR, this is a feature you would want, and you'd willingly give up that slow launch in exchange for being able to safely open documents.
I like it. Any kind of security is good security, I think. I mean, as long as it's working toward the betterments.
I don't
of
know. There's a trade-off. There comes a point.
There is a
Slippery
tipping point.
slope argument there.
But
I
just
use-
shut up and do what we tell you.
I use 7FA to log in.
Well, I told you my prediction was like 5FA or 6FA.
That's where you're
blood
calling
test.
it?
Yeah.
Blood test.
Oh, you weren't on that episode. Yeah, that was my prediction for 2021.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's gonna do a lot of things.
7FA.
Yeah,
I like it.
yeah. When you do the
Do we
fingerprint
have
scanner.
7F?
Well, that's what we were trying to go through
Sure.
and figure them out. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was biometric stuff. There's,
yeah,
it might have been a stool sample.
Yeah, we're going to have to get some bone marrow from you.
Yeah, let's go back to episode 100 where we talked about pooping in a box. It's
You
just
would really consider whether or not you needed to log into that system
Yeah.
at that point in time.
Exactly.
If they're taking bone marrow.
Yeah, it's like a privilege access thing. It's more like people don't log in because it's too much time. There's
We
less
need
people in
spinal
there.
fluid.
Oh, God. All right. Let's move on to our next article from /dot.org. Cable ISP warns excessive uploaders, says network can't handle heavy usage. And so is excessive uploaders just code for torrent seeders?
Maybe. They don't really get specific on this. They are pretty vague, but it is interesting because, if you think about most regular broadband that's run to people's houses, they always focus on the download speeds, right? And they'll commit to larger download speeds than upload speeds. And most users don't care about that because what do you upload? Mouse clicks and emails. That's usually about it. But you download a ton. Your Netflix and every other thing that you use as you download content. So that's what people focus on. And so when they run lines, especially running fiber lines to communities, a lot of times they'll dedicate more of the fiber lines to download than upload. So they have far less bandwidth on the upload side, and we usually wouldn't notice it. But now with everybody doing work from home, when you're doing a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting or whatever, your video is being uploaded across that line. And if you're running BitTorrent, sure, you're uploading, you're seeding torrents like that and other kind of peer-to-peer type stuff. But I think in this scenario, because BitTorrent's been going on for a long time, and so that
hasn't really changed.
Right. And people are streaming more, but that's download, not upload. So I think this one's really going to be tied to all the video conferencing that's happening.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like, because you're pushing all that video information,
Yeah.
uploading it into the ether there. You know, it's funny, this article came up today because last night there was, I have Cox, and Cox truck was out in front of our house, and my wife was like, the internet is crap. And I'm like, huh, really? And it was straight garbage. We could hardly even just surf regular web pages. And I saw the guy out there kind of frustrated on his phone talking to somebody. And I think it seems like they've oversold the line.
Oh, certainly.
Because they're building new houses all around my area right now. So I'm assuming it's just getting super saturated.
Yeah, that whole business model is based on overselling. You know, they'll sell the bandwidth 6-to-1 based on the customers.
And I'm wondering, because I was reading through this article, and a lot of people were saying, I have yet to come anywhere near my data cap, and I'm getting these warnings. Now, a warning's a warning, big deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
As long as they don't actually, but they're warning that they will cut you off if you continue to exceed your limits.
Not throttle you, but actually
Not
cut
throttle,
you off.
cut you off.
Wow.
That's what it says in the article anyway. And I'm like, that tells you maybe they lied about how much upload you actually were getting, because they thought you're never going to hit that anyway. And then a pandemic hit, and they figured out they were.
I was thinking about my network, and you know, I used to have a terabyte, or I guess I technically have a terabyte data cap. I have AT&T fiber, and so I pay an extra $50 a month or whatever to not have a data cap. And there have been times where I've gone over a terabyte, and when I've looked at the data, it's usually my various cloud drives syncing, like my Google Drive or whatever. If I mess with a bunch of files, I'll have to sync up, and that eats up bandwidth. But I also have a Plex server that I, can watch movies on, and I share that with a few people. I think I'd share it with you. So like if you were to watch a movie,
Not me.
there's a quick 3 gigs, and I don't know if you and I have the same movie taste.
I don't know that he has a Plex server.
You know what? I wouldn't know either, Don, because I don't know what movies you watch.
Predator.
I know we quote from the
And,
same crap every week here.
You know, ever since I put the pie hole on my network, about 20% of my traffic is ads and trackers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm
Get
like,
that back.
oh, this is not
Like,
good.
I heard you like pie holes. Would you like that?
Well, Peter, I can send you a Plex invite, but I don't have the piano or the notebook on there.
As long as you've got the English.
At least not the
remastered.
director's cut. You know,
Yeah, I'm
wouldn't
set.
want to
Ishtar.
deprive you. Ishtar, Tristan and Isolde, or whatever it is.
Last thing I want is a data cap, because I'm downloading videos from you.
Well, download's fine.
Oh,
Apparently,
yeah, downloading's cool.
Yeah, go download crazy.
Well, that'll be next month. We'll be talking about that. Like, you people have watched too much Netflix during this pandemic.
Yeah.
We're shutting you down. Or we can just watch it all in like 480, like the old days.
Yeah.
Like, we're going back to 4:3, people, because this is too much.
Gotta save the bits.
Yeah.
Hey, I'd be down with that.
Would you really? Have you ever?
I mean, I grew up watching crappy
I know.
VHS, and it never bothered me until you contrasted it with a high def picture.
Yep.
If that high def picture was not a thing I had to worry about, I'd be like, oh,
Oh,
this is
sure.
cool.
But like the one time you accidentally turned to the non-HD channel instead of the HD, when you're like, what is this garbage? What am I, a peasant? And then you're like, oh, wait, I forgot to press the...
What always amazed me were like the 8-bit and 16-bit video games.
Oh, yeah.
How they designed them planning on the scan lines being there.
Oh, yeah.
And so it looks great on the CRT, and then you run it in an emulator, whatever, it looks like crap.
Yeah, it's horrible. All
Good times.
right.
Yep.
Yeah, good times. All right, our next article is from TechRadar.com. OneDrive is finally getting a much-needed 64-bit version. OneDrive can now access more than 4 gigabytes of system memory. So what were they capped at before that?
All right. Just full disclosure here. I picked this article because it was total bullshit.
Oh, well, plus I'm like, man, my OneDrive's been wanting 8 gigs of memory, and now finally I can totally bring my system to its knees using OneDrive.
All right. So OneDrive previously was a 32-bit app. It was only available in 32 bits. And In the Windows world, there is an artificial software limit that is put that holds a 32-bit application to only 3 gigs of memory, right? In the Linux world or Mac or whatever, a 32-bit application can actually do 4 gigs of memory, but in this case, only 3. So the little byline of the article is actually wrong, but it was held to 3 gigs. Now, they moved it to 64-bit, and so now it can access way more memory, right? It's got all that at its disposal. But I will tell you, my OneDrive configuration is probably more complex than most people's. I'm connected to multiple SharePoint sites for syncing OneDrive as well as my own OneDrive. And I know one of my company ones that I'm connected to has well over 100,000 files in it, and that all gets indexed. And so I checked before the show, how much memory is my OneDrive consuming? And it was at 380 megabytes.
Oh, really?
So if you can index over 100,000 files and changes and replicas and all that, and do it in under 400 megabytes of memory, then it doesn't really matter if it's 32-bit or 64-bit. So in this scenario, the article's a little off base into why there's a benefit. You're not going to benefit from the extra memory. But what you are going to benefit from is that in Microsoft Windows, at least, 64-bit applications are applied on a more secure layer. You know, they're not using the WoW 64, which is Windows on Windows, the 32-bit emulated layer. They're just running in the 64-bit space, and so they're able to take advantage of a lot more security features. So that will make OneDrive, actually, it will make it run a little bit faster. It will make it more secure. Those are benefits, but extra memory is not a benefit you're going to get out of this one.
So not a complete marketing ploy to get you to like think about OneDrive and have it in your space.
Yeah, there's benefits, just not the ones they mentioned in the
yeah.
article. Yeah.
Well, you gotta love it when they come out and just say, hey, you know, here's some. It's the what's the anti-rust coating that they put on cars, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah, right.
Gotta have the undercoat.
Yeah, you gotta have the undercoat.
Yeah. So is it possible that they're kind of future-proofing it? So maybe there's new features they want to roll out, but they couldn't because they were hampered by being a 32-bit?
You know, for an application like OneDrive, right? You think about what it does. So it builds a database of all your files. And each entry, each file in your OneDrive has to be indexed in that database, and it has to create a checksum so that it can evaluate files to see if they've changed. And if it's on SharePoint, it's got a whole notification mechanism anyway, so it doesn't even have to do that. But that's really all it does. That's all OneDrive does, and then it uploads and downloads files. So maintaining that database is the big part. Now, if you have a database that's over 4 gigabytes in size, right? Remember, 1 megabyte is enough to hold the entire text of the Encyclopedia Britannica, if anybody remembers what that thing is. So 4 gigabytes, I mean, you were talking about just a library's worth of data.
You're not saying the size of the files in that. You're saying the size of the list of
sure,
files.
Yeah. Because as far as OneDrive is concerned, if it's a 1 kilobyte file or if it's an 8 gigabyte file, the CRC that it generates or the checksum it generates is going to be the same size.
Gotcha.
Yep. So, yeah, and you know, who knows? Maybe there's other things coming down the line. Maybe eventually they'll dump the 32-bit subsystem so it has to run 64 bits. So that'd kind of be future-proofing, I guess.
Don't defend them, Don.
Well, we'll see next week if there's some article that updates it and Don has to eat crow. But
yeah. Well, there you go. One impact it'll have on people, though, is that now that it's a 64-bit app, it won't be in the Program Files x86 folder anymore. It'll be in the regular Program Files folder. So if you've whitelisted the application, you'll need to update your policies.
That's good to know.
nice. Yeah. So unrelated, is there a Plex app in Fire TV, or do I need to get some?
There should be, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I use Roku's at home personally, and some TVs have it built in, like the Samsung TVs. Yeah.
Oh, I have a Samsung. Maybe I've got it.
Maybe.
I wouldn't know.
Daniel can install it for you. Remotely.
Daniel's already in. He's like, I got
you hooked up, man. You're good.
You're good. I was watching on the
That's why
camera,
I was kind of
too.
quiet here.
You're
I was
set.
just
You're set. The dog's watching.
setting stuff up.
All dogs go to heaven now. All right. Our next
Far From Home, The Adventures of Yellow Dog.
Yes. Is that the one with Michael J. Fox?
No, that's
Homeward
Homeward
Bound.
Bound.
Homeward
yeah.
Bound. Great.
We watched that the other day, man. My kids loved it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I tried to get my kids to watch it. They did not. Yeah, that didn't
Oh.
work out. We watched Wreck-It Ralph instead.
Wreck-It
Like,
Ralph is
finally
pretty
they got
awesome.
rid of the dog. How do we do that? All right. Our next article is from zdnet.com. 10-year-old Sudo bug lets Linux users gain root-level access. The vulnerability named Baron Samedit
Nicely done.
impacts most Linux distributions today. Did I pronounce that wrong?
You samed it. Yeah, I would go with Sam Edit.
Sam Ed. Oh, see, damn it. All right. What, Baron? Like, I thought it was like somebody's last name or
So
something.
apparently it's a play on words with like some voodoo priest of the undead or something like that.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah? Well, screw you guys, I'm
There you
going
go.
home.
I knew I'd find a use for that one today. All right, well then, what's this?
You know, so
Baron von Samet do?
Sudo has had a couple of vulnerabilities over the last just few years, and some of them have been really significant, like the one where a user could actually modify if they just had the ability to run even one command in the sudoers file, they could.
That was a fun one.
Yeah, they could leverage an extra file and basically gain access to run whatever the heck they wanted through sudo. Actually, it's been a couple of years now since that one happened. But this one, Daniel, all the stuff I read on it was pretty light on details. Did you see anything?
Yeah, so I kind of hunted down. Qualys was the organization that discovered and published the CVE, or got credit for the CVE, should I say. They have a proof of concept that you can watch their video where they go into showing you how it works, which is basically like, if you're running any version of sudo within the last 10 years, then you can put a -s or a -i in there and kind of fiddle with it a little bit. And it has to do with some usage of the backspace character, which is for escaping meta characters. They play around with that a little bit, and lo and behold, there's some heap overflow that occurs, and you can get it to run whatever the heck you want. Like, hey, it kind of drops it into this shell command environments. When you use that, it puts it into that mode, which is all done underneath the hood in the code. You start playing around with that, and you say, well, I want you to run stuff in this shell command, which is being run as root. So there you go. Now you got that context, and boom, you can just pop a shell, and you are root. So that's the danger of it. They don't have a lot of detail on that because they said they are not going to publish any proof of concept code now or ever. At least that's as of right now, from what I understand. Qualys is keeping that on the down low. There is a patch available, so if you do have sudo, if you're running Linux within the last 10 years, you're going to want to update that.
Now, if you're wondering why Qualys would not release a proof of concept, let me spread a little fear here real quick.
Fear-mongering Don.
So Qualys found this vulnerability 2 weeks ago, and the patch is already out. Like, this is the best case scenario. The team that maintains sudo released version 1.9.5 P2 patch 2. So that one's out. It's available right now. If you have a Linux box, like Daniel said, you are a sudo apt update or sudo DNF update away from having this problem solved on your system, and you're safe. However, sudo shows up in a lot of places, not just Linux. Like in Unix systems or any Unix-like system, any system with BusyBox likely has some kind of sudo alongside
Bunch
it.
of IoT out there running that stuff, huh?
Android phones,
Yep.
IoT, your television, any smart device these days is likely running Linux, and if it has any kind of shell, then it will likely have sudo functionality. Your webcams, your all sorts of stuff.
The good news is, Don, is that those companies are really, they care about security a lot.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They're really concerned about it, so you should be fine. That is called sarcasm, by the way.
I was going to say, I'm sensing it.
Yeah.
So
I want to put sarcasm tags around myself. Can I get that?
So the challenge here is people like Daniel, getting into a device, just getting shell access. That's one challenge. But once you're able to get that shell access either through a web application or whatever, the next challenge is getting elevated privileges. Well, if the system is running sudo prior to the one that was released today, then Daniel's now got an easy venue to be able to do that.
Well, if I had the proof of concept, if I'm Qualys at this point, or some crazy state-sponsored awesomeness.
Yep. So Qualys is in an interesting position now. They're not releasing a proof of concept. However, all you have to do is run a diff between 1.9.5 P2 and 1.9.5 P1 and see what was changed.
Yeah.
And then you kind of reverse engineer it to figure out how you could exploit that. So just know the fact that the state-sponsored hackers out there are doing that right now while we're podcasting and screwing around. That's what they're doing. And, we'll see this taken advantage of pretty quick.
Yeah. It's probably going to lead to some horrible data breach that, someone didn't update sudo, so 10 billion records were accessed, and now you got to get rid of your credit card.
And this is where like a web application firewall would really help, because once we do know the strings or whatever that are being used by the attacker, we can actually intercept that in transit and block it before it even gets to a server, that kind of stuff. But right now we're in that unknown period, so we just have to wait.
I just realized you're saying sudo too, and I think I said sudo.
It's tomato.
No, it's not.
It's Studio.
Yeah. Phil Collins is going to come in here and smack the piss out of you.
A lot of people don't know that Phil Collins was a Unix admin for many years.
Yeah, a long time.
Many years.
He ran the big iron at IBM, man.
I'll be damned. Didn't know that. All right. Well, this next article, we didn't call it behind bars, but People were arrested, so I'm going to play the behind bars intro for this one.
People were arrested.
Break the law, and you'll go to jail.
Usually Zach says break the law because it's fun.
You'll go to jail in the Ukraine. That is not fun. All right,
no.
this article is from Wired.com. Cops disrupt Emotet, the internet's most dangerous malware. A global operation has taken down the notorious botnet in a blow to cyber criminals worldwide. And so were they all emo, Mike?
When they were caught, they all had long hair and were cutting themselves.
Yeah.
Listening to Panic at the Disco.
Yeah, I was going to say
Fall Out Boy.
Yeah, Fall Out Boy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll work.
Or My Chemical Romance.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, that's a good one. So, Screamo. So this is a botnet that's been around for, what, at least
A
5
while.
years, it says.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So they finally tracked it down. They actually did some raids, and they posted some video. Did you guys watch the video?
I did.
No.
It's crazy because it shows them like breaking the locks off of doors and storming in and arresting people and stuff, and then they're indexing the evidence. And so there's
Hard drives on top of hard drives.
This is in the Ukraine,
Yeah.
collecting tons of hard drives, $100 bills like crazy.
Is that the thumbnail I'm
Yeah.
looking at? With it's like
It's
just
stacks. Yeah.
Yeah, because
$100
they're
bills.
they're indexing the serial numbers on all those $100 bills
Oh
to try
my
and track them
goodness.
back if they can. But what's even crazier, when towards the end of the video, they're laying out all the evidence to take pictures, and I kept seeing what looked like little tuna cans, and it took me a minute to figure out what those were. They were gold bars.
That's crazy.
So like, and there's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And-
Gold's expensive.
and, yeah. So if
heavy.
you've got illegal money or whatever, and you're trying to launder, like they were converting it to gold. And I mean that's. But what got me the most is I always think of a lot of these as being state sponsored or highly sophisticated or whatever. But watching the video, I had to check the date on it because the computer hardware and stuff that was in use
It's total garbage.
easily 10 years old. And none of the computers had walls on them. All the case sides have been taken off and
Yeah,
stuff.
and I'm like,
and-
you can afford nicer stuff. I'm looking
Yeah.
at the cash. And they had euros, too. They had all
Listen,
kinds
that's
of
how the rich stay rich, man. They don't buy new
guess so.
stuff. They keep using what they got as long as
This
they don't
apartment
Yes.
was crap.
Yeah.
But,
correct me if I'm wrong, but like the Emotet Trojan kind of like evolved from this bank stealing botnet to kind of like a hacking as a service kind of
Yeah.
thing, right? It was like, hey, we can do more than just steal from banks. Do you need something? We can hook you up.
They would rent it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could rent a botnet
Yeah.
for X amount of
Yeah.
Bitcoin or whatever per day.
And then you could here's access to the command and control. Do whatever you like. Have fun. Take it for a spin.
Go nuts.
Yeah.
Oh, now, that was a neat thing they didn't mention in this article, the Wired article, on one of the other websites that were talking about it, that once, I think it was the Dutch authorities that broke into this one.
yeah, it was a combination. It lists.
I think the Netherlands led it, but U.S., Canada, U.K., Germany, France. But the Dutch authorities are actually modifying the command and control to basically reset and shut down Emotet on March 25th. Now, I don't know why they're waiting an entire month. I guess to give machines time to phone home or something. But on
Everybody cash out.
Yeah, everybody cash out.
on March 25th, a kill command will be sent out to basically remove Emotet from infected machines. So that's kind of neat.
Because this is saying even if we go to the place where it originated and get rid of that, there's still all these devices that are infected with it, and so this is getting rid of it on those devices. At this
Correct.
point.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, because if a machine's already compromised, then in theory, they might find some way to be able to reconnect to it. But they phone home to IPs and domain names that have all been seized at this point. So it'd be pretty hard for somebody to reactivate Emotet.
Because the cops own it now, I start seeing that whole sting operation going up again. Like, yeah, come here for your free, $50, prepaid card. Cool. Oh, it's the cops.
Honestly, I was expecting, we're talking about the Ukraine here. You just don't think of it as the, what's the opposite of corrupt?
A righteous,
Yeah, the most
lawful?
righteous law enforcement. I mean, I'm expecting they're laying out the gold bars. I'm going, well, how many do you think there were before the camera got there? Because that's what's really exciting. If you left all those ones as evidence, there's some dude walking out with just, I can't even walk. These pockets full of...
Cops in the Netherlands are entrepreneurs. I guess it was Ukraine. They're entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's impressive, and just just straight up strange. Watch that video. It's weird.
I will totally do
You don't even need the audio. Just
Look like
No, you can't understand the
Dude,
audio because it is in Ukrainian.
don't they speak Russian?
Russian, whatever.
In the Ukraine.
You know what? Today's not my day.
Today's not my day.
Okay. These things happen. All right. Our next article, is actually.
That's it.
What's that?
Wasn't that it? Oh, we got a Who Got
No, we got a Who Got Pwned today.
That's right.
So let's go ahead and jump to that segment with Who Got Pwned.
Looks like you're about to get pwned.
Fatality.
Yeah!
All right, this one is from TheVerge.com. Google warns of novel social engineering method used to hack security researchers. Government-backed hackers in North Korea are reportedly responsible for everything, because we just blame the North Koreans. But so this is not. This is something that's actually been used, or a method they've discovered?
This has already happened. So
Okay.
Who Got Pwned this time is actually the security researchers, and that's what's scary about this. You know, each week we highlight vulnerabilities that have been detected, usually by security researchers, that then do responsible disclosure and turn that over. Well, North Korean hackers, or allegedly, because we always
Could
blame,
be anybody.
could be. So North Korean hackers turned the tables a little bit and said, hey, instead of trying to find our own 0 days and stuff, why don't we hack other security researchers and get their 0 days that they're researching, and then we can take advantage of it.
Because going back to like what you were saying, that other people know these things but don't necessarily publish their proof of concepts. Well, these proof of concepts exist somewhere, so why can't I just grab those?
Or they're waiting for the next Black Hat conference to be able to release it and get a little fame out of it, so they sit on it for months on end. That happens. So in this scenario, it's not even real hacking. It's social engineering, really. And Daniel,
it's human hacking.
Is that OSINT? What is that called? It's not OSINT.
No, it would be social engineering. It's just straight up like, I want to get that information, that sensitive information from you. And instead of trying to do it through a technical mean, even though they set up technology to do that, the main focus was to trick you, make people believe that it was safe or right to put that information in the hands of the hacker.
So in this scenario, what they did is they set up Twitter feeds, Instagram channels, a blog. They created a fake persona that was a security researcher and started doing posts and stuff under the persona of this security researcher. And then they reached out to other security researchers and said, hey, I'd like to collaborate with you on what you're working on. And so if let's say Daniel's the security researcher and I'm this hacker with a fake identity, I reach out to Daniel and say, hey, Daniel, I've seen some of the work you've done in this industry. I'd like to work with you. Let's share notes.
Don't trust him, Daniel.
And
don't do it.
So Daniel might say, well, I don't know this guy. Let me go and do some research.
It's a zero trust environment.
Well, it's got a Twitter feed that's been going on for a year or two, and there's an Instagram channel. This guy likes to party.
You got to admit, this is long game kind of idea right here. Because they said, we are going to do the long con. It's not going to be a short hit, but we're going to get some major return on our investment on this, which they absolutely did. So it was worth it for them. Yeah.
And I remember attending a talk at Black Hat a couple of years ago. There was a lady who was a security researcher, but she had built one of these fake personas of her as a reporter. And so she had built all this stuff up for her, like at a fake news channel and so on, so that she could then reach out to government officials and say, hey, I'm so-and-so with such and such news. And they would share information with her that, her calls wouldn't get through normally. But when you say I'm with a news channel, people are ready to do an interview. And so she was using that to talk to you.
Yeah, and it's funny what kind of access you can get with a press pass and how much leeway you get. So I was listening to one journalist who was talking about when he was covering Occupy Wall Street. And he was there and some disruption occurred and the cops came in and were arresting people. And he was like, no, I'm not with the disruption. I'm a journalist. I'm documenting this. And he said, once I showed them my credentials and they verified it was true, they let me go. So if you had a legit press pass, you could totally be a part of that then get away with it because
half the Capitol rioters were journalists because they were live streaming.
Listen,
I'm just there to document it.
Wow, that sucks.
I know there was one guy who was claiming that he was and they pulled footage of him I
did hear about that guy. He apparently had dropped his phone and was asking someone to give him his phone. One journalist that I follow actually knows that guy and says that's what was going on. That's what you're seeing he had dropped his phone, so it looked like he was telling people like, go in, go now. I was like, can you hand me my phone?
Go in and grab my phone and toss it back.
But when he said something like together we're making history.
Oh, I don't know about that.
There might be more than one. I think there are more than one person.
Maybe there's more than one
that
had that. Yeah.
Everyone has their phone out. Hey, we're journalists now. We're the media.
Well, then you pull out a press pass.
Yeah. You can't just print that.
Interesting thing about press passes. Did you know they don't exist? There's no such thing as a press pass.
Yeah, you just make your own press pass. There's
Yeah,
not like
you
a
just
governing
print it out.
body.
There is no such thing as a press pass.
So there's no like issuing.
The closest thing is like the White House press corps. They get credentials issued.
Yeah,
right.
If you go to like a sports, if you're like covering a football game, that stadium will issue press passes for that event. But there's not like you couldn't just walk up and be like press, let me in. They've got to be.
So I guess you have to prove that you work for a press organization. To be
Which how do you prove that now with like, hey, I've got a blog. Why can't I be in the room?
I would assume that they contact whoever you say you work for, Vice or.
That was the thing with was it South by Southwest where there was like a restaurant that put a sign in the window that said influencers not welcome because during South by Southwest everybody would come in and say, well, I need a free meal because I'll review it on my website. Like, no, we need money for food.
This is the week we make money.
Gonna need that cash.
I mean, they let us be press for CES.
Yeah,
that's right.
So there you go. That's how.
I mean, we're feet up in the press lounge and everything.
That's right. They fed us.
All you can eat popcorn.
I forgot about that.
It was nice. It was a good time.
Pre-COVID.
Free USB drives with a bunch of malware on them.
I took them all.
He did. He was just sitting at the
stocking
at the Airbnb going, "What's this? I don't know. My computer don't work though."
No, I was using Titus's computer for that.
Yeah. Hey, Titus, where's your laptop?
Let me borrow that for just a second.
Yeah.
I've just got USB-C. So what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
That's your security protection right there.
I can't plug anything in.
Yeah, Apple did this to protect me from me. That's smart. I don't know what that's called, but that's smart. All right, well, I was saying it's not my day. A couple weeks ago was not my day, and I was talking about a webinar that was in the past, and you guys just let me do it. It wasn't until
you act like we're listening to you. When you start in on that drivel.
Yeah, Val was listening and alerted me to it. Said, yeah, and they didn't even mention it. I'm like, I look over there. They're doing emails by this point. But I checked, and February 11th is in the future, and that is when our next webinar is, which is navigating the future of project management, because we're celebrating Project Management Month here in February. And so we're looking at the new PMP exam and industry trends with Chris Ward, who's one of the newest edutainers here, and he's going to be doing that on Thursday, February 11th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So register now at itpro.tv/webinars, and we've got the archives of the last couple up there, the one that Don just did with Jason Blanchard about charting a path to a cybersecurity career. So some good ones there to check out. itpro.tv/webinars. And while you're on that internet, head over to go.itpro.tv/Technado. There you can get a 30% off coupon code for the lifetime of your personal plan. You can also request a team trial and find out about things like the Pro Portal that are available just for teams. And that's all at go.itpro.tv/Technado. All right, I think I mentioned everything that was
nice in the future.
In the future, but the nice thing is,
Marty!
If you heard that, you got to go back. The good thing is, if you did hear that and were confused, it is archived now. You can watch that webinar in the past.
There's something wrong with your pitch, Marty.
My pitch? What, Doc? All right, that's my Marty.
Yeah, it was pretty. It was
have
good.
To crack your
Wasn't
voice
bad.
a little bit.
Wasn't bad. We'll take it.
This is going to turn into like the Rocky Horror Picture Show. You guys are just going to reenact.
What do we become assholes? Or something?
Exactly.
Oh, all right. Well, fair enough. All right. Well, thank you so much to Tim Titus from PathSolutions, PathSolutions.com. Check them out, and thanks everybody, and thank you, gentlemen, for your contributions and actually listening to the promos at the end there.
Yeah, it was fun.
Right?
What happened?
I love that part.
Exactly. What was your favorite promo? If you had to choose.
It was that one, the one.
The second one?
Yeah, it was
that
great.
Too.
I like
All
that.
right, well, thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next week right here on Technado with Don Pizzette.